Have you ever wanted to watch a movie with 2 times the Vince Vaughn? I'm sure you have, but let's talk about it. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Movie Emporium's Hulu original movie review of Mike and Nick and Alice, the newest film from, of course, director BenDavid Grabinski. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, in this crazy, insane scenario of a comedy that is a movie that stars 2 versions of course, Vince Vaughn's character. Nick is an individual who's a hitman, who's a mafioso, who works pretty much in line with the Keith David character, who plays gangster, like the lead gangster of this outfit. And he somehow, with the help of Ben Schwartz, who is a time travel scientist, is sent back to basically, I guess you could say, help and save his partner, who he's kind of grown apart from, who's played by James Marsden, who plays Mike. And with the help of his Mike's wife, who is, of course, the ex-wife of Vince Vaughn's character, they basically have to stop Mike from dying, which leads to 2 characters like the Baron, which I won't spoil who it is. We also, once again, Keith David's in this movie, Jimmy Tatro, who, of course, plays a recently released prisoner, who's the son of Keith David's character. It also has people like Louis Tan and Arturo Castro, and of course Stephen Root, and a bunch of other people that are very famous. And it basically is a movie where just a lot of craziness ensues. You know, it has 2 versions of Vince Vaughn, whether you like it or not. And basically, it's a movie about individuals trying to save individuals and having time travel involved. So think about a much more R-rated version of Back to the Future without the creepy mom and son ancestral nature that is in that movie. But once again, it's a movie that is dealing with time travel, you know, comedy and action, all that good stuff. So that's kind of where it lands when it comes to this type of movie. So similar to something like If I Had Legs, I Could Kick You, Mike and Nick and Alice is quite the mouthful when it comes to a title, but I'm assuming BenDavid Grabinski pitched this to Hulu. Is like, I really want this title because it's very funny. I mean, think about it. It's a hugely crazy, weird title for a movie. But everything I knew about this movie was that it was a time travel movie. It had 2 versions of Vince Vaughn in it. It had James Marsden and Ben Schwartz, who were both, of course, in Sonic the Hedgehog. And, of course, it had Keith David. And I learned more and more about this movie as I was listening to a podcast, which you know, kind of know if you've listened to that podcast because he was on it. And it was a movie that sounded right up my alley because I love time travel movies, to be fairly honest. So, you know, BenDavid Grabinski, of course, was the showrunner of that Scott Pilgrim Takes Off kind of spinoff that they did, which I really, really loved. So going into this movie, kind of not knowing too much about it, but knowing it was a time travel movie that involved the 2 versions of Vince Vaughn, I'm like, you know, Vince Vaughn's kind of hit or miss when it comes to, you know, how much you can handle of him. But with that said, for my honest opinion of this movie, I found this movie really delightful. I found it really enjoyable. I thought having 2 Vince Vaughns was going to be too much. And I think his shtick is actually a lot more toned down than what you would expect. Having pairings with, of course, James Marsden and, of course, Eiza González really helps this movie because they are really well put together. They are fun comedic actors. And I think they have good chemistry together when they're on screen, especially having to work with 2 versions of Vince Vaughn. I'm assuming they filmed a couple of the scenes twice or used a type of green screen or something like that. But this movie, really weirdly enough, has some heart to it, which I was kind of surprised by. But it's just a movie where chaos ensues, goofy stuff happens. You know, you have Jimmy Tatro in this movie, who plays a wannabe gangster individual who's the son of the Keith David character, who's fantastic in this movie. And Jimmy's character, who plays, of course, Jimmy Boy, is an individual who's he was in prison. They're looking for a rat. They think it's James Marsden's Mike character. And the more and more it delves deep into what it truly is, the more and more it just gets out of hand and just how crazy it gets. The fact that, you know, every time it gets around people like Dumbass Tony, played by Arturo Castro, and Royd Rage Ryan, who's played by Louis Tan, the more and more like out of whack and weird and crazy it becomes because of some of the stuff they say. You know, Dumbass Tony's called Dumbass Tony for a reason, but they're talking about like he goes to an after party, then he goes to an after party, and then an after party. It's like, it's a lot of that. You could tell that the director is just really into, you know, shtick comedy and just really into the over the top silliness of the chaotic nature of like how goofy comedy can be when it comes to like time travel and stuff like that, how ridiculous it is. And just, you know, I was kind of laughing through the whole thing. And it's a movie that doesn't take itself too seriously, but also has, you know, the simple fact that nobody really gets surprised that there's two versions of Vince Vaughn's character is also kind of fun. And watching how James Marsden character reacts to everything when it comes to how one of the versions of Vince Vaughn's character, of course, of Nick, has to play off like, you know, everything's already on the level and everything's fine when he learns about what he has to do and how that has to play out. And the fact that they're worried about this character called the Baron, who is a fun character in this movie. It really is a goofy, fun time. There's some really good, fun action set pieces. It's a little more coarse than I was expecting, but, you know, the fact that they kind of play off of it and they kind of keep the joke running, it makes it funnier when it, you know, could be really stupid. And Keith David just delivers monologue after monologue after monologue, which is fantastic. And I don't know, this movie is just a lot of fun. You know, if you want to rate it, it's like a 4 out of 5 because it's not the like most competent movie. It's never going to be. It's something like if you took the idea of Time Cop and you mixed it in with, you know, of course, Back to the Future or something of that nature, and you threw all the ideas of like how, you know, in Time Cop, if you touch one another, it causes a ripple effect where you disappear and stuff like that. But once again, it leads to, you know, down a path that you expect. There's nothing really inventing the wheel with this movie. And I think the fact that people are just having fun and they are enjoying themselves and it just feels like they had a good time, and watching, you know, the kind of triangle effect of like the relationship that Alice has with both Mike and Nick, and the eventual introduction to their cat, which is really funny. There's a cat in this movie named Kingpin that is really cute. And, you know, watch the simple fact that, you know, it deals with time travel is always going to give me a little bit of fun when it comes to what I'm looking for in a movie, especially a comedy. So overall, I think this movie is a lot of fun. It has great soundtrack. Tracy Lord's Juno Reactor song is in this movie that was in Mortal Kombat, which is pretty funny because Louis Tan's also in Mortal Kombat, but you know the song what I'm talking about, you'll know it when you hear it. But it also has like great moments where it talks about Gilmore Girls. There's a really big moment just like they're going on and on about Gilmore Girls, which is really funny. And I think in the end, the movie is not like the greatest movie ever made, but it's a enjoyable hour and 45 minute, you know, action comedy time travel movie with a lot of goofy moments and a lot of fun. And, you know, everybody's just on board with what BenDavid Grabinski is writing here. And it has, you know, Oscar level cinematographers and editors, and, you know, it's just a fun movie. It's a movie that premieres on Hulu, could have premiered in theaters, and I think would have done at least halfway decent. But I think if you're looking for something fun and energetic and stupid, I think this is what you're looking for. So that's my take on Mike and Nick and Alice, which will be on Hulu on the 27th. So there you go. Anyways, with that said, thank you so much for watching my review. I do appreciate it. In the comments below, tell me what you think of the time travel movies. What's your favorite time travel movie? Are you looking forward to this movie as well? Let me know. But otherwise, if you like what you see on the channel, hit the subscribe button to join Movie Emporium. Hit that notification bell. Top to 5 is coming next. If you like this video, awesome. Hit that like button. And as always, we'll see you guys on the next video. Peace out, guys.